In this part of the PHP tutorial, we are going to use the MySQL database, and then we are going to use PHP to insert data into the MySQL database, and then we are going to retrieve data from the database. So MySQL is a very popular relational database system. It's free, it's open source, and MySQL uses this SQL, structured query language. It's a database language typically used when you are going to insert, delete, update, or retrieve data from an SQL server database like MySQL. And the combination of PHP and MySQL is very popular and very powerful because PHP has built-in features for easily connecting to a MySQL database and also communicating with the database by easily insert, retrieve, update, or insert data into the database. And you can create quite powerful web applications where you show data, save data, update data, and delete data in this MySQL database from PHP code. Here you see a tool typically used in order to insert tables. You can also use this tool to insert values or retrieve data from the database. Basically, PHP MyAdmin is a tool that is part of PHP and MySQL. So when you have a web server up and running with PHP and MySQL, this software or this application will be part of the package. So PHP MyAdmin is used to administer your MySQL database, so you can create tables, you can run queries all from this graphical user interface. So here to the left you see the different tables you have. You can create new tables, you can create SQL queries, you can queries that insert data or retrieve data, etc. from one or more of these tables that you have created in your database. So in order to connect to a database from PHP, you have two different options. You can so there are two libraries that are part of PHP that you can use, either the package or library called MySQLi. This package only works for MySQL databases. Second option is PDO. This option also works for all the types of database systems like SQL Server from Microsoft, etc. In this tutorial I will stick to this MySQLi alternative. Here you see a simple PHP code that connects to a MySQL database. So basically you use this package, and part of that package it has different functions that you can use in order to connect to the database, insert data, retrieve data, etc. So then you use this built-in function called MySQLi_connect in order to connect to your database, and then input to that function is the name of the server. If the server is on the same computer as PHP or the same server, you can just use localhost. If not, you need to specify the server name here. And then in addition you need to specify username, password, and the actual database. Because you can have multiple databases, and for that specific database you need to specify the username and the password. So basically use MySQLi_connect in order to connect to your MySQL database. When you are dealing with databases, you typically want to do the following operations. You want to create or insert some data, you want to read or select data, you want to update data, and you want to delete data. And all these four different options is referred to as CRUD functionality. Short for C is for create, R for read, U is for update, and D for delete. And typically all applications and all web applications today need to communicate with a database such as MySQL or other types of database systems, and these applications typically need to have this CRUD functionality where you need to create, read, update, and delete data within this database. In order to perform these CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete, typically you need to use this built-in language called SQL, Structured Query Language. So that language is part of all database systems today. And then you can use this SQL language in order to insert data, select data, delete data, or update data. Here you see some examples. In order to insert data, you use this insert into, name of the table, and the different columns, and the actual values. Select, then you just select and the different columns like this, and from the specific table. Update, then you just use update. Student, in this case, is the name of the table, set, and the name of the column name you want to update, and the actual value, and for which ID you want to update that information. Delete, then you just use the delete command, delete from, and the table name, where, and the specify the specific ID like this. So these are the 4 different commands that is part of this SQL programming language: insert, select, update, and delete. In this tutorial I will show some basic examples how you can insert data and retrieve data from a MySQL database. Before we can do that, we need to create a database. So then we use this tool, PHP MyAdmin. It's part of the PHP and MySQL server. So actually it's just a web application that you start using, and when you have logged into that application, you can create tables, etc. So then we are going to just create a simple example where you have this book table containing of a book ID, title, author, and topic. So it's a simple table with 4 columns. And also, after we have created the tables, we typically also need to insert some data. So then we just run some insert queries for inserting some dummy books into the database. Then let's start creating the table. So I've already made an SQL query for creating this book table. So I have the query here. So then I can just copy it, and then I can open this PHP MyAdmin tool in order to insert that new table. So then I can just select here SQL and then copy paste, and then here I can just click go, and then you see this book table has been created, and now this book table is empty. So let's also insert some data. Then I have created some queries for that. So we're going to create these 3 books into the database. I just copy these queries, paste them in here, SQL, and just do like this. Then insert a book called Web Applications, another book called Introduction to IoT, a 3rd book called C# Programming. So then I just click go here in order to insert these 3 books into this book table. Now I can also use SQL to select all from book like this. Click go, and then you see these 3 books has been created within my SQL database. So now we are ready to start using PHP to create some applications that can insert more books and also retrieve these books from the database. So the first thing you need to do in PHP is to create this code for connecting to the database. Typically you put this code in a separate PHP file, so you can use that code in multiple PHP files. So you need to create this code and save it as a separate PHP file. It could be called config.php or something, and within that file you just create this code and use this mysqli _connect in order to connect to the database. So here you see how I put this code for connecting to the database in a separate file called config.php. You can call that file whatever you like. You see the file here in Visual Studio Code. Basically, create this code in a separate file called config.php. Next, we can create a new PHP file for inserting data into the database. So here I have another PHP file. So here in the beginning, I use this built-in feature in PHP, require once on the name of the PHP file. So basically, here I just include this config file as part of this file. So then the first part of this file is actually to just execute this PHP code that are connecting to your database. And then later we create a query for inserting data into this book table. So insert into book, title, author, topic, and some values. In this case, I can just create some dummy data, AI for title, Alan Johnson for author, and data for category. Typically, these values, you typically retrieve these values from HTML form where the user can enter this information. But just to show the principles how to insert data into the database, I just hard code the data here in the PHP file directly. And then when I create this query, I just use this built-in function, MySQLi_query. And then it has two parameters, one for the connection that is established here in this config.php file. We are connecting to the database. And the second one is this SQL query. And that's basically all you need in order to insert data into the MySQL database. So let's see in action how this can be done. So in order to save some time, I already created these files. So here I have this config.php where I'm entering my username, password, etc. and then connect to the database. I will not open this one because it has my personal username and password for the database. And then in, for instance, this one, insert data. Let's open this one. This is the example I was showing you here. So the first line here is to require once and then include this config.php, which has the PHP code for connecting to the MySQL database. And then I can start writing the query. So all this is pure PHP code. It's in a start PHP tag and an end PHP tag. So then I just define a variable called SQL. You can call the variable whatever you like, but $ SQL and then equals to, and then here I just specify the query, insert into book, which is the name of the table, and the different columns, title, author, and topic, and then values, and then the actual values we are going to insert into the table. I just here create a dummy book called AI with this specific author and this specific topic. And then I just use this MySQLi_query with the argument connection, which is coming from this file, and the SQL query itself, which I specify here. So let's just go to the FTP program and then upload this file to the server, insert data.php. I just upload it to the server. Then I go to my web browser. Then I specify the name of the file here. And also before we do that, let's just see here in my PHP MyAdmin tool, we have 3 different books called Web Application, Introduction to IoT, and this C# Programming. And now we are going to insert a book number 4 called AI. So we have now just specified this file here, insert_data.php, click enter in order to run that file. Okay, we got some problems here. Let's just figure it out. So now it doesn't find this config.php file because I haven't uploaded it to the server. So go back to PHP, and then I have this config.php here, upload it to the server, run these files once more, insert_data.php, like this, and then connected successfully. New record created successfully. And then I can go back to this PHP here. I can use a query and then insert all from, select all from book, like this. Click go, and then you see this fourth book has been created and inserted into the database, namely the title AI with the author Alan Johnson and the topic data. Basically, this simple code made it possible to insert some data into my database, my MySQL database, like this, by just using this query, insert into book, etc. And then using this MySQL_query command in order to execute this query and insert the data into the database. So far we are using this insert_data.php to insert a new record or a new book into our database and our table called book. Let's see how we can retrieve information from the same database. So then we are going to create a new PHP file where we are going to retrieve data. So then it's more or less similar to the previous one. You use these require ones and the name of the config file in order to be able to connect to the database. Then we create a new query, and now we are going to use this select query, select book ID, title, author, and topic from book. And then these results are put into a new variable called result by using this MySQLi_query that has the input arguments, the connection that comes from here, and the query that comes from here. And then since this is this query depends on how many books there are stored in the database. In our case, now we have 4 different books, so we need typically to use a while loop in order to get one book at a time. So then we will just present the results from the database into a web page, and then in order to retrieve specific values from the database, we just use the row function or the row functionality, which is part of PHP, and the name of the column. So in this case, $row book ID will retrieve the book ID. Then we use $row title in order to retrieve the title. Then row author, and finally row topic in order to retrieve the topic. And then we get one element by time by iterate this into inside a while loop like this. So here you see this file in my Visual Studio Code editor. So we are going to use this. So let's also open this PHP file, this get_data in my Visual Studio Code editor. So now here in Visual Studio Code I have this file insert_data that I was inserting some data into the database on the table called book. And this second PHP file are going to retrieve data from the database. So then I just specify the query here in order to retrieve data from this book table, namely book ID, title, author, and topic. And then we are just using a while loop that is part of PHP in order to iterate through the different records that are stored in the database, because in the database, according to PHP MyAdmin tool, we have 4 different books in our database. That's why we need to use this while loop in order to iterate through each record that are stored in the database. And then we use this $row in order to specify which column that we are going to retrieve from the database. So let's just also use our FTP program in order to upload that get data to our server. I go to my web browser. So here is the script or file for inserting data. Let's just use a new folder here, and then instead of insert data, I type get data_.php, and then you see we are able to successfully retrieve the data from the database. So book ID 1, title, web applications, author Elvis Presley, topic programming, book ID 2, title introduction to IoT, etc. like this. So basically, we have created two PHP files, one for inserting data into the database and one for retrieving data from the database. Of course, we can work with the formatting here. Typically, you want to present this data into an HTML file. So let's see how we can do that. I have created a second file here called get data number 2 that are actually using the same query, but the data itself are put into an HTML table. So here, before the query, I'm just using this table, which is part of HTML. I also set the border equals to 1, so you can see the borders for the table. Here is the header of the table, where I just specify book ID, title, author, and topic. Here is the query, which is similar as the previous example. And here is the same while loop, retrieving one record at a time. And here I build up the contents of this HTML table using tr for a new row and td for a new column. And then in the first column, we need to retrieve the book ID. In the second column, we need to retrieve the title. In the third column, we need to retrieve the author. And in the fourth and final column, we need to retrieve the topic from the book table. Basically, this code are just retrieving one record at a time and put it into an HTML table. So let's go to our FTP program, upload this one as well. And then instead of get data, just copy this one, put it in a new tab here, and change it to get data 2, like this. And then you see it's the same data that you see here, but the formatting is better. It has been put into an HTML table like this. So then you have the book ID here, titles here, the authors here, and the topics here. So let's summarize. We was using this PHP MyAdmin tool in order to insert the table and some dummy data. Then we created a config.php file where we was creating the code for connecting to the database using this mysqli.connect with the name of the server, username, password, and the name of the database like this. Then we was creating this PHP file, insert_data, that was inserting a new record or a new book into our database. So then insert into book with title, author, and topic, and some values like this. And then we was using this mysqli_query in order to insert that query and these data into the database. Then we was creating a third PHP file, get_data, in order to retrieve data from the database. And then you see the result here. We was defining the query, select book ID, title, etc. from book. And we was using this mysqli_num.rows and this mysqli.query in order to actually retrieve these data from the database. And we was using a while loop in order to fetch one record at a time. And after each record, we was using a line break in order to put a new record from the database on a separate line like this. But even better, in the next example, we was formatting the data and put it into an HTML table like this. And then you see the final code that is presented here. We was using an ordinary table in that is part of HTML. Here we was creating the header, book ID, title, author, and topic here. And then here we specified the select statement and was retrieving one record in each iteration inside this while loop. So this was the final part of this PHP tutorial. So good luck using PHP. Thank you and goodbye.